That's the kind of thing where if your favorite sports team wants to get rid of a player, but doesn't want to seem like they got rid of the player, you lowball them big time on the offer, right? So then they're insulted and they leave. That's what this feels like.
You may go now.
Oh, snap. I'll try to find that clip. What up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Nerd Gen Report. I'm your host, Pablo, and joining me, as always, is Mr. Brian Schultz. Marvel Roundup. Got a lot of news to go over. It seems like the closer and closer, minute we get closer to the Doomsday movie, we get people talking a lot more. So we got some news on the Doomsday storyline. The storyline, I was looking to see if I found anything new and interesting about the Doomsday storyline, but nothing interesting thus far. Just a lot of talk from the actors and the participants of this film. Brand New Day has apparently 10 villains. Spider-Man Netflix MCU crossover film in the works, apparently. The closer I think we also get to the Daredevil, and it seems that people are sort of excited about this show and the possibilities that, depending on how good it is, that we may get some team-ups, some crossover there. So there's talks of that. Trammell Tillman, his role has apparently been revealed, possibly. Spider-Man Noir. We've seen some shots of Nicolas Cage in the suit, and in that show is supposed to be coming out in the spring, which should be interesting. Disney has a new CEO, Bob Iger said, and we're getting apparently a 10 Rings animated show. So let's get started with X-Men Doomsday storyline. Brian, what have you read and heard?
Yeah, we got a couple of Doomsday related tidbits here, but I think the X-Men one is the most interesting. Of course, now when I say X-Men in this case, I am talking about the 20th Century Fox X-Men, the legacy X-Men, not whatever new mutants we might encounter in this film or Secret Wars. But the concept that has been put forth is the idea that the X-Men in this movie, or in their universe, have survived many incursions into their universe. And each one of them has brought their universe to the brink of annihilation. And so they have set themselves up as the defenders and saviors of that universe. So inclusive of humanity. Okay. So as a result, that universe, they've achieved this utopia where you no longer have humanity and mutants at war the way that you typically have had in what the traditional comic.
Yeah.
As a result, that apparently makes them incredibly hostile to anyone who crosses into their universe, heroes or villains, which lends a little bit of credence to the idea that we might meet them in conflict with the Avengers, not necessarily with Doom, because they're simply saying anyone that comes into the universe, they have to stop to prevent their own universe from dying. It's a lot of backstory, it feels like, for characters that have been around for 25 plus years and presumably are exiting stage left, in this film or the next film. What do you think about that concept of the Earth that's being described there, or the world that's being described there, and how this team of Patrick Stewart, James Marsden, Rebecca Romijn, Ian McKellen are being used in the movie in terms of their action and sort of plot device?
I mean, if you think about X-Men, the animated series, they've had to deal with a lot of different scenarios and weird things, and they're always up to the task at overcoming whatever threat they have to face. So it seems reasonable to me anyways that this could be another instance or another threat that they have to face, and they are the most experienced at dealing with situations like this. So yeah, it makes pretty good sense as to them being the guys who have to thwart whoever it is, good or bad, but they can't let their universe go down. So that makes sense.
I think there's some implication there of they have defeated and destroyed heroes in the past. I think the implication would be if there's been that many incursions, they're not all villains coming through,
Yeah.
which means they probably have killed off iterations of Avengers or, I don't know, other teams at Fantastic Fours, for like other teams of heroes have come through that they've destroyed. So the moral ambiguity there of, it'd be interesting to see like the little bit you see in the trailer. We know that Xavier and Magneto are kind of friends with very different viewpoints on the world, but this would seem to suggest perhaps, some real unification maybe between those two in this particular case. If there's peace, right? That would imply that somehow the objectives of Magneto and Xavier have kind of been achieved to some degree.
I'm wondering if there are going to be some callbacks to Days of Future Past, because you can count that as an instance where they had to deal with time and may have been one of the causes for the incursions that they had to deal with. So it'll be interesting to hear the dialogue and the callbacks if there's any of those times that they've had to deal with because of some of the things that they've done in the past. So that's going to be interesting to see.
I think
What's-
that's fair. And I would also say, like, I think you have to put Deadpool and Wolverine on the board for this as well, because of in part because this is where Channing Tatum's inclusion might actually be a clue to something.
Mhm.
Because, I mean, you figure Hugh Jackman will pop up, even though they haven't said he's going to be around. But in the off chance they hold him for Secret Wars, for this to make sense, and given how much kind of universe hopping was going on, with the TVA involvement, Deadpool and Wolverine, Tatum would actually be the bridge in this
Yeah.
case that you would have to that. So I think you're right. I think there's going to be some connectivity to, and especially, like we saw the Russos do this with Endgame. I would imagine Marvel is going to do some of that as well, whereas that they're going to lean on the past, that what we've seen in cinema to try to come up with some cool little nods and that sort of stuff. Now, the other thing I heard as part of this thing, and I had it got me got the spidey senses going for the future a little bit, which was, rumor is one of the more spectacular fights in the film and involving the X-Men is presumably the end of Ian McKellen's Magneto in a one-on-one against Doom. That supposedly, and McKellen himself, kind of in his classic way of, I don't give up because I'm 85. They asked him about something to do with the movie, and he's like, oh yeah, I just got done destroying New Jersey.
Yeah.
So rumored is this fight is amazing and maybe is a grand send off for his long run as the character. But when I heard that, I don't know what your reaction is. It made me feel like that makes it less likely that Magneto is in the next iteration of the Mutant Saga. There's something about that where if you're going to have like a massive send off finale for Magneto in this movie, would you really just turn around and reboot a new Magneto in the Mutant Saga? Or would it lend credence to the idea that whether it's Mr. Sinister or somebody else, they might bench Magneto for the start of whatever Kevin wants to do? And kind of say, this is the thing right here. This is the Magneto thing that you're going to see for a while.
If Sinister is the one rumored to be the next villain, then having Magneto as another, because we know Magneto is, throughout its history of the X-Men, he's always been a part of whatever is going on, right? Especially when it comes to humans and mutants. It's okay that we take a break, and it gives us an opportunity to introduce a new Magneto at some point. If this is the last hurrah for Magneto and his epic, then I don't think people will mind his absence in the future, as long as it doesn't go too far. Because if we're going to be introduced to a new Professor X, then certainly we have to at some point be introduced to a new Magneto. And how they portray that is going to be very interesting. With all these characters that they do for the Mutant Saga, we're going to be looking at that to see how they do with that, especially with Kevin's turn at building this. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
that's what I'm looking forward to seeing, what he does with the Mutant Saga in his hands.
Which, as we've discussed, I think is very much TBD based upon how this movie and Secret Wars do. And we'll get into that a little bit more with the Disney new CEO succession, because I think that's relevant here too. But look, I mean, I think you could Easter egg this a little bit. You could introduce a new Eric. So you could basically, because this is young, right? Xavier's young in theory. So if he's going to be in his 20s, if they're going to really do this and he's going to be, 25, I don't know what you want to pick your age,
Yeah.
You could certainly have the character of Eric be around, but he doesn't have to be Magneto yet. You could sort of drop it in as like either he references him, they actually show it in a flashback, so you're like, oh, that's the actor that's going to play him, but then you file it away and he's not really part of the mainline story. I mean, you could do that, and I think that's perfectly valid. I just was curious because, like, if they're really, in my mind, I'm like, all right, if you're building a set piece amidst this ensemble film to effectively create a one-on-one between Robert Downey and Ian McKellen, that kind of feels like the culmination of something, and kind of feels like it's like, if it's that good, are you going to really try to top that in the next outing of the New Mutant Saga? That feels like a bad idea, right?
Yeah,
so it kind of feels like here's your Magneto. You'll see him in animated form in X-Men 97, and maybe he's not part of this iteration. Which I know, we had at least one commenter who kind of will definitely get on board with that if that's true. Kind of was like, enough Magneto already. So we'll see. But anyway, before we leave it though, what do you think of? Is that something that excites you? Ian McKellen going full Magneto powered one last time against Robert Downey and presumably losing? Is that something you were excited to see?
I don't know about excited. I'm curious to see how they pull this off. I'm curious about the whole thing, so doesn't matter who's in it. I mean, I'm curious to see what Gambit does because he's talked so much. So I'm curious to see every single person involved in this, see what they have to do. Because again, there's a lot of characters, Brian. And if there are characters that fall like in the realm of unnecessary and not useful, for me, that'll be interesting to see if they do that to some of these characters. Again, we have a lot of characters in here. So what they have to do is very interesting, and I'm curious to see what each of these characters' role in this scenario will have to do in order to be, I guess, relevant, because it will suck if they have to nerf these guys like they did with the Hulk. You know what I'm saying?
It feels almost inevitable that a few of these demises and departures are going to feel forced a little bit. I don't see any way around it. Like, for example, there's rumors of, I mentioned, again, it connects to the X-Men. So the rumors are the X-Men might be in the opening set piece of this movie, and that one of their opponents is Tobey Maguire. That's one of the rumors out there.
Interesting.
So if Tobey Maguire was to perish in the first 5 minutes of Avengers Doomsday at the hands of the X-Men, is that moving? Is it weird? Does it feel almost like a short shift of his legacy as Spider-Man and his contribution to this universe? Certainly. It kind of does, right?
Certainly.
Like, it's a moment. Don't get me wrong. Like, if you see Tobey Maguire die on screen as Spider-Man and Peter Parker, that's a moment. I'm not taking that away to a zero, but I'm just sort of saying to people, if that's your entrance to this film, you just got in your seat and you're like just starting with your popcorn, and all of a sudden, like, Tobey Maguire's dead on screen, like that might feel a little abrupt, I think, given he's been around for 25 years.
Especially if we've had talks about a Spider-Man 4, which I believe
Sam Raimi kind of said no, right?
No, exactly. Yes. So
maybe that's why he said no.
But let's see how these.
Yeah.
I mean, we all know that a lot of these dudes will perish. How they do that? Yes. How they do that will be interesting to see how people react to that. Because if it doesn't feel like, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be that initial gasp of, wow, he's done.
Yeah.
So,
but not all those are created equal, right?
Yeah.
Like, I do think for the audience, like, if you see if you know it's Robert Downey as Doom, and he was to eliminate Chris Evans permanently. That you would feel. I think that would feel like a something, right? Like that's what I mean. Like, because you've lived that relationship of those actors, not just the characters, but the actors for so long. So that's what I mean. Whereas like some of this mix and match is going to be like done for effect, but I almost feel like you're going to feel like, wow, that just came and went. Like I barely got reacquainted with that character. They just got offed by this other character. So I don't know. I don't know how they're going to avoid that. Also, other Doomsday notes. Not a huge surprise here, but a growing rumor that the finale battle in this scene takes place in Latveria. That makes sense to me. I mean, why wouldn't it? If it's Doom's show, doesn't it have to come to his backyard at some point? I mean, that kind of feels right.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they end up there. It's one of those Tony Stark speeches to Doctor Strange. We got to take the fight to him situation.
There you go. Yeah.
So we'll see how they end up in Latveria and what Latveria looks like. And is it anything like we saw in Moon Knight?
Yeah, you're right. That's a good call. That's a good callback that most people won't be aware of. That there was that's the first time it really was referenced. So, have you seen this theory about the Avengers logo being a tell? I thought this was awesome.
Where?
So, there's fans that have noted that if you look at the font of each Avengers movie, that Marvel uses two different versions of the A, and that in movies where the Avengers win, they use a full circle around the A, and where they lose, they use a half circle. And so they've noted that for Doomsday, there's a full circle, but for Secret Wars, there's a half circle. So now there's a theory that what if Marvel tries to flip the script and the Avengers win round one, but actually lose the grand finale?
Anything to make it interesting, I would say.
I agree with this. Yeah, I love this theory. It's fantastic. So.
Yeah, and listen, Secret Wars is the end and the new beginning of something else. So I'm fine with it not being, let's say, a happy ending situation. It's what they have to deal with, and obviously a lot of these characters aren't coming back. So I've said this once and I'm gonna say it again. The Russos have a great track record in the MCU. Outside of it, horrendous. Not totally horrendous, but they've had some really bad outings. And so I can understand there not being a lot of confidence in them being able to pull this off. But I've said this over and over again, that because they are very immersed and knowledgeable of the history of the MCU, and that, we've been sort of forced to sort of look at Endgame and forget about everything else. Certainly there is a story that they've come up with that I think will get the fans excited, hopefully. There is a lot of nervousness around this because of all that's happening in this film with all the characters that's in it. We've called it a circus. We've called it a show. We haven't given this a lot of hope. But we certainly are welcoming to a good surprise if they're able to pull this off. Like they did with not they did with No Way Home, but again, we had our concerns with No Way Home with all that was going on there, and they were able to pull it off, man, and give us something classic in the Spider-Man.
That's a good example that you use there, because one could argue, how happy of an ending is that actually? It's a tremendous resolution, but a great cost. You could argue that that's a loss for Peter on a lot of levels, right? I mean, the sacrifice made to stop kind of that's a multiversal incursion of its own, costs him literally everything in his life. So is that would you define that as he won?
He didn't win, but he did what he had to do for the greater good, and I think that's what he's about.
His world won. Yes. But I would argue he, on balance, lost.
He lost friendships, loves, everything. He lost everything. He had to start from. Imagine being born knowing everything. You know what I'm
So,
saying?
an ending like that, I think, would be a bold choice.
Yeah.
Right? A bold choice of sacrifice. And the thing is, it is called Secret Wars, but you don't have, obviously they're not going to follow every beat and note of the actual comic. But something that does leave you with sort of this taste of, yes, as you said, a reset board, but a board where you're like, wow, that's, this ain't the celebration at the end of Star Wars, right? This is, this is something much more nuanced and layered, and you're kind of, emotionally spent. That's the best case in some ways, I would argue. Yeah, it keeps you I mean, this is an interesting analogy. I've been catching up on. I'll sort of spoil it, but don't spoil it. I've been catching up on Tom Hiddleston's series, The Night Manager, on Prime. They released season 2 10 years after season 1, and I missed season 1 back when, so I went back and watched it. It's a really good show. But I will say the finale of season 2 was one of these. Was one of the bolder choices of subverting your expectations, because you're seeing this cat and mouse game between him and Hugh Laurie's villain, and you're kind of in the back of your mind being like, well, I kind of know that Hiddleston's going to get over on him at some point. You're kind of seeing them, have schemes and deceptions, and then you realize in the finale of this one that no, actually, the villain was 3 steps ahead. And our hero's getting absolutely turnstile. And that's kind of I was when it was starting to happen, was really gutting, where you're give me season 3 now, because this was actually done in a really bold way. And I was I kind of, when I saw this theory, I was like, I hope it's right. I actually hope that Secret Wars is the kind of thing where it's it feels like an ending, but you feel like, man, that took a lot out of me, and was not, a flag waving celebration.
Yeah.
So interesting. By the way, Chris Hemsworth gets, speaking of this, I need to before he gets our award, the Hype Man Award, the Don King Award this week. Someone asked him about a loaded question. Variety asked him, will Marvel fans cry when Thor and Loki are reunited? So he said, I can't, yes, no, maybe to that question. But then when asked about the movie, he said, it's incredibly emotional. It's incredibly powerful. It's going to blow you away. I don't know how they do it. End quote.
Hey, maybe the hype is real, Brian, and we're just not convinced. I got to see it to believe it. I got to see it to believe it.
We've heard these before.
Don't trust them.
This is where Captain Kirk chimes in, because we've heard these lines before, and it doesn't always pan out.
Hey, let's see, Brian. Let's see. Quoting Brian, let's see if they're lying. Let's see if they're lying.
No doubt.
But it's at the end of the day, what can they say? They're not going to say.
No.
You know what I'm saying? It's what? How do they sound saying, the movie was what I read? They're not going to say none of that.
No, that's what they say. That's what they say 10 years later. If the movie doesn't work out, that's when they're doing a press circuit for something else. That's when that comment comes out.
That's what you know what? It would be interesting to hear Chris Hemsworth commentary on Thor,
look at Love and Thunder. You didn't hear him say, did you hear him say that it was a misfire and too goofy when they were out promoting it? No, but a couple years later, after he saw the reception and saw the movie, he's like, my bad. That's what happened.
So we shall see. I mean, we were getting towards a good segue in Brand New Day.
Yeah.
That's going to be very interesting. Brand New Day is I think I don't think we had it as our most anticipated, or did we?
I did. I had it at 3. You had Doomsday at 3. You took the Doomsday route. I took Brand New Day. We each only took 1. So
okay.
Yeah.
So apparently there's going to be 10 villains up in that joint, but we've discussed this in the past before in terms of Mary Jane, and Zendaya's character will have moved on. And we will perhaps see, obviously, Tom Holland trying to kick game again and see if he can get her back, right? It's not going to be the awkward situation in terms of them getting to know each other. It's going to be more awkward him trying to get to know her.
Mm-hmm.
but she's moved on. She's matured. She's not the same Mary Jane that we saw before. I would imagine that she would be much more glamorous than what she was before. And so I'm looking forward to seeing that dynamic there. But brand new day, 10 villains, Brian, what have you heard?
So lots of Spider-Man updates. I think I'm in the camp of I'm excited when we get to the end of this. The 10 villains thing I think is a little bait and switch. So there's a report that it's at least 10, but the focus is on nichier villains, B or C level villains. They're not using Sinister Six. So we know Scorpion's in the movie. We know Tombstone's in the movie. We now know that Trammell Tillman is playing, I think, the head of damage control, William Metzger. So he's playing a villain, but kind of like a behind the scenes villain. And apparently you've got, as you said, like he has like an anti-mutant militia. There's the Hand. And then apparently there might be some kind of montage, maybe depicting Tom Holland's new life as the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man post the events of No Way Home, where you might see almost cameo appearances that are Easter eggs. So I don't think it's really 10 villains. It's more, let's call it 3 or 4. And none of them are, to the level of Green Goblin or Dr. Octopus. They're not trying for that. I think that's smart.
Yeah.
The stakes of this movie are such that he shouldn't be matching up with the creme de la creme in this particular stage of his career. So when I read this, I was like, that's a lot. And then I said, okay, if that's how they're structuring it, I can kind of see it. Other ones, by the way, that are rumored that will appear sort of more in cameo form or smaller form: Tarantula, Boomerang, 8-Ball, the Jackal. So these are like, they're going deep in the catalog.
They're going deep in the 900 characters. We're going to knock out 10 at a time. Yeah. Anything else, Brian, before we move on to Spider-Man and Netflix?
Well, yeah. So and then the last piece of this is the asterisk of what Hulk and Punisher are in this movie, right? So they're not villains per se, but they are classified as more threats to Spider-Man than friends, because Hulk obviously described more in savage Grey Hulk mode, and Punisher is Punisher, right? So in terms of how he operates. So I think there's a thought that like maybe Spider-Man winds up aligning with Punisher, but it's not necessarily, a true alliance. All of that to me kind of checks out, and it segues to something that we were speculating on. And this is something that we had talked about, which was like, why were they moving Spider-Man and the former Netflix Marvel characters closer and closer together when there's all these rights restrictions? And then we heard this rumor that Sony might be open to relaxing said restrictions. And now we get a report they're setting the stage for a potential crossover movie to finally put all these characters on the big screen together.
It all makes sense, Brian, especially after them admitting to themselves, tapping out and saying, we can't do this anymore because we were never qualified to do it. Because that's what it is, right? They weren't qualified to take over the reins and do something as extraordinary as what the MCU had done with Spider-Man. Kevin said, y'all do what y'all gonna do.
Yeah, he's in the Thanos armor, sitting on the rock, tossing a little stone there. That's what he's doing right now. Yeah.
So it only makes sense to team up and be a beneficiary of what the MCU can do with Spider-Man and his amazing friends, let's call them. So listen, if you go into the comics, Spider-Man has met a lot of different foes and heroes alike. And this only makes sense for Sony to sort of give up the reins and make it easier for them to work together and again benefit from what Spider-Man can bring along with other characters, and it just makes sense, yo. So this is again, we've talked about this in our last show, the show before this one, about the which one would be the better movie. Right now, I'm more excited for Brand New Day to see what happens there than what I am with Doomsday. Although I am still curious, and the excitement is starting to build up in terms of, what will we end up with after this, right? So I'm again this crossover that they're doing. It only makes sense, especially if they're in the same universe. They're in the same city, pretty much. You know what I'm saying?
Hold that thought.
Yeah.
I love. Yeah. So I am a huge fan of this. I also think it lends real purpose to Brand New Day. Right, Brand New Day is a name of a comic storyline, but from a movie casual standpoint, this is the beginning of Holland's next and maybe final trilogy. We've heard there's 3, right? So I think we've kind of wondered, like, where are we going with this? And this is the answer.
Yeah.
This is the answer that I think makes relevant why you would invite John Bernthal to be in this movie, why you would put the hand in this movie. And honestly, like, I think it kind of lends some much needed support to like Born Again and what's going on over there. If you have now a path to say, look, there is a collaborative ending to all this that's going to be on the big screen. And like, one of the reasons I'm most excited is I think it's one of the areas where the collective casting has been very good. And so I don't want to miss an opportunity to get Tom Holland, Charlie Cox, Vincent D'Onofrio, who, is epic Kingpin, Kristen Ritter. I don't want to miss an opportunity to get those characters on screen together because, they're kind of still in their prime. And it's like, if they go through their entire careers and they can't cross paths because of rights restrictions, that's tragedy for us as fans.
Absolutely.
So that's the thing,
money
like,
on the table.
Yeah, so I'm like, if these were miscast, I wouldn't be as excited. But because they're cast so well, Finn Jones accepted, I think
Volume 4 out next week.
I think because of that alone makes me really excited to feel like we're going somewhere with this. And maybe this is what Kevin sold them on. Remember, there was a huge fight about what this movie was supposed to be like. And Sony wanted the bigger event. Kevin wanted the streets level. And maybe what he pitched him on was, look, I'll make you a trade. You give me the streets level Spider-Man. Let's get together, and our big team up event that you want is going to be this. And this is the thing that will actually sell. And to your point about where they're in the same city, I would ask them if and when they get to this project, shoot it in New York. Don't make Cleveland stand in for New York. Don't make Atlanta stand. New York needs to be a character in this movie because it matters to these individuals.
Absolutely.
So go shoot it. I know the city's changed a lot and it's probably going to change a lot more. But it doesn't matter, man. Have the authentic landmarks, have the authentic locations, pay what it takes to, like, I remember when Sam Raimi shot original Spider-Man, outside Madison Square Park and all around like Fifth Avenue. They did that. And like, it matters. And so I think like there's a real opportunity here to make like a true Heroes for Hire, Spider-Man, Kingpin, New York centric, spectacular comic book movie. And I'm like, I don't know. I read this and I was like, this all lines up to where I'm pretty fired up to see what Brand New Day kicks off with this.
Yeah.
And that's something not to forget. You got the Punisher special, you got Born Again. Now it makes me feel like, okay, well, what if these things are a little more interconnected than we realize? We might have something here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And he stated that this movie will go right into Brand New Day. So just knowing that this is leading up to something, and we'll have not a prequel, but an instance of understanding of why he's involved in Brand New Day, I think is important, and it'll be very interesting to watch. Trammell Tillman. Role revealed.
So there's a lot of talk about bigger name characters, but this kind of sounds like he's almost going to be like an anti Nick Fury type, like a kind of guy pop up. And supposedly the contract is he's going to be in a bunch of stuff. So that's why he would take the William Metzger kind of lower profile name. Is you would start. I mean, obviously we just saw Damage Control in Wonder Man, right? We saw that organization. We saw it previously as well. I'm trying to remember. They popped up in another show as well. Way back. WandaVision? Was it? Were they the organization in WandaVision trying to clean up Westfield?
I don't recall.
I can't remember. I think they've been around at least one other time. So point is he's now going to be the head of that and running that. And so you'll kind of see him in a, cameos type role. So, maybe a little beneath him, but in terms of his skill level, but as we saw with Sam Jackson, like you could take that to great effect if you and get some pretty good checks doing it. So maybe that's kind of what he's after here. But yeah, that seems to be where we're landing with him.
More Spider-Man. This time, Nicolas Cage gets his turn as Spider-Man Noir. Brian, how excited are you for this, and what's the latest?
I would consider myself more curious than excited.
Okay.
Obviously, we've been introduced to the character in another form, so we've seen it. Kind of scene stealing, I suppose, back in the original back when in Spider-Verse. Nicolas Cage is kind of inherently of interest given his own comic book fandom, albeit I think he's more of a DC Superman guy. But I don't know what to expect with this. One thing I think was interesting that came out was that they're not calling him Spider-Man in this show.
Okay.
Because of the fact that it is sort of a period piece in the 1930s. He's going by the Spider, sort of like a reference to like the Shadow or the Spirit, like characters of that era. So he's being called the Spider. It also sounded like, and he's not playing a version of Peter Parker. Right? He's playing a character of Ben Reilly.
Ben Reilly, yes.
Description of a guy whose hero complex has collapsed into a midlife crisis, has already gone through the arc, seen it all. This is from the showrunner. He's over it, trying to move past it, but his past keeps coming back to haunt him. And the reason he's named Ben Reilly is explained. Okay. I also think it's smart and interesting that this show is coming in both black and white and color. I think that's an interesting and a smart thing to do. And then I believe the Sandman is the main villain of this, played by Jack Houston, who you will recognize from at least a couple of things. But
he was in Boardwalk Empire and he was in American Hustle.
There you go. I'm curious. Where's your? What I was surprised at was I didn't know it was coming this soon. I didn't know they were that ready to drop it if it's coming in the next couple of months. So, like, where is your excitement level for this?
I'm with you in terms of curiosity to see Nick Cage play a version of Spider-Man on TV, and I'm excited in the sense that we'll get to see this character. We get to binge. Hopefully, they put it out all at once, which I doubt. But to see him more often in this character, to see what he does, what he's capable of, and I'm looking forward to seeing some of that, to see how it plays out, especially with Nick Cage. Nick Cage is, it's Nick Cage.
Even at this age, I know exactly. There's still that's what I mean. He's one of those actors where there's kind of just like a little curiosity. He works all the time. Some of the stuff he makes is pretty bad, but like every once in a while, it's like, he hits something and you're kind of like, oh, that's right. That's why he won an Oscar 30 years ago,
I just want to share this with you real quick. It was the Whispers. Come on.
Oh, wow.
Perfect casting.
There you go, right in the middle.
Let's do Disney CEO before we get into, because the 10 rings is going to be quick. But the new CEO, Brian.
Yeah.
Who is he? I know that he was the guy running the parks. Now he's running the whole thing. What makes him qualified, Brian?
Well, that he was running the parks. So Josh D'Amaro is the guy who got the nod over Dana Walden. This is where it's interesting, because Dana Walden is staying as the chief creative officer, but she's the media side, right? So she would be closer to the Feiges of the world, and the Kathleen Kennedys of the world. D'Amaro's running the parks, right? That's been a pretty big linchpin and moneymaker for Disney for a long time. But I think it should not be understated that Bob Iger, in this case, gave the company to the parks side. And you could say like, well, now he's responsible for more than that, but obviously that's what he knows best and that's what his DNA is going to be. And what I think is interesting and is worth some discussion is if you just sort of say, okay, he's taking over sooner than expected. Iger was supposed to leave at the end of this year. They fast tracked that. So now DeMaro's taking over next month. Right? So he's in.
He is doing his Willie Dynamite strut. Bob Iger is. He's out.
It's kind of not a celebratory exit, right? Because the stock price is lower than when he came back, which is, and there's been probably as many disappointments and concerns as there have been wins. So this is not, this is one of those cases of like Jordan being a wizard as opposed to a bull a little bit, right? And I think he's betting a lot on DeMaro because the last time he picked a successor, it went so poorly he had to come back.
Yes.
In Bob Chapek, right? So this is one of those where like his own legacy is on the line with this pick. And so it's interesting that he picked the park side of the house to kind of ascend, not the content side. My first thought, and I think what's interesting here is that to me suggests that no matter what DeMaro says publicly, given his DNA, he will want content to feed the parks lineup.
That makes sense.
Right? I mean, that to me is like the biggest no-brainer of this is like, you've got to keep your parks fresh. You've got to be justifying these ridiculous prices that they charge for people to go there, which means you need new rides, you need new merch. And that means the projects you're putting out on Disney Plus and to the movies have to feed that.
Yeah.
So that's where, as I think about, for example, Mutant Saga, makes me a little nervous, right? Because it's like if you're Kevin Feige and you're wanting to do a character-driven, maybe even though they're younger actors, like a more serious, like lower budget, lower effects-driven build, your boss is now saying, I need an X-Men ride. Those two things are in conflict.
Yeah.
That pushes you more toward, I need a spectacle faster. And that's what I'm pointing out to people. I'm fascinated to see when DeMaro comes back with his strategic plan, whether we start to see it move into the content creation in a different way. Because Iger was pretty much all in on sequels by the time he left, right? Everything that was coming out was like live action remakes and sequels.
Yeah.
If you're the parks guy, sequels aren't always the best thing because you already have a ride for a lot of that IP. So you want new and big.
Yeah, definitely. This is a new era. And we have to define this era, but not necessarily completely cutting off what's been done, but certainly reviving and evolving into something new. That would certainly take some time, but it has to evolve into that. He has a tough task in front of him, but certainly, people wish him the best to sort of revive and get Disney back to, I guess, his roots. Right now, to me, Disney is in disarray.
I would agree.
And they have lost, I think, the title of that family-friendly sort of branding.
So along those lines, a couple of other subplots that I would suggest you keep an eye out for, which is, does he reshuffle the deck? Now, I certainly think something like Hulu, which Disney just got done acquiring, like, could they sell the TV channels? Like, why do they want those? Like, does he feel like they need them? I find it unlikely he would sell Star Wars or Marvel, right? If you're the parks guy, you want Star Wars rides and you want Marvel rides. And the second you send those out the door, you're never going to get a chance to do those again. So I actually think perished thought that Disney is going to put either of those on the block. That's another thing I think kind of came out of this. But the other subplot is, does Dana Walden stay? Right now, she has a title, but she was the other candidate to be the CEO. So she is not getting the job that she wanted. If she walks, who becomes the chief creative officer of Disney?
It would have to be Feige, I would say.
One would think Kevin Feige would be at or near the top of the list to put his hand up to take that job, which is a really interesting subplot for everything Marvel and Star Wars, if we're being honest, right? We heard talk Kevin Feige might run Star Wars. He does run Marvel. What if he ran both from a level above, but could no longer be, what do we hear? He's all in on Doomsday. Can't do that if you're the chief creative officer of Disney anymore. What if Dana Walden leaves and Kevin Feige takes her place? What does the world look like at Disney?
I think it makes more sense for him to want that role. I mean, we saw reports. I mean, we've talked about it in the past about Kevin possibly leaving after Mutant Saga and stuff like that. But then there's these talks of he's not going anywhere. And obviously it's because of the new change in leadership and stuff. So he's trying to solidify his position. I mean, I didn't know too much about, what's her name again?
Dana Walden?
Wanting perhaps a CEO role?
Oh, no, she wanted it. She was the other candidate. Yeah.
So her not getting it definitely puts her in a position to be looking for something that'll give her that position or that role that she wanted. Because obviously, if you're a candidate and you want the role and you don't get it, you're going to feel a certain way.
That's my point.
So,
yeah, she got promoted, but she didn't get promoted high enough, right? That's,
very interesting next 6 months.
Here's another one. I'll throw another one at you. Let's say Dana Walden leaves, but Kevin Feige, they tell him, we need you to stay at Marvel, and we bring in a new boss for you as chief creative officer.
He's out.
Right at the time that there's a new owner of Warner Brothers, I tell you what, man, if that DCU is not cranking, and you got a new owner at WB, and you look over and Kevin Feige's been bypassed, you best believe somebody's making a call and waving some serious coin at that guy to see, do you want to run DC?
Hells yeah.
I don't think it's impossible. Is it likely? No. Is it impossible? The timing could be there.
It'll be very interesting. These next few months, I would say 6 months. Let's see what happens. These positions here, because certainly Kevin Feige definitely wants to be around for what I believe, and I think many believe, his turn at the Mutant Saga, I think, is very important to him.
Sure.
And I think he wants to see that off in a good way in terms of positioning it well. Let's see how these first few movies I think those first couple of films, if they are like, oh my God, I think he will be satisfied
I agree.
to then now say to himself, okay, I've done what full circle. Now I want to move on to something bigger.
But maybe you don't get that, like timing. And the thing is, like, again, I'm putting a lot of balls in motion here, but I would posit, as much as he wants to do X-Men his own way, if he's got a new boss, he might not be allowed to do that. And my point is, like, he's not going to pursue a flawed dream, because he lived that in some ways when he was younger. So my point is, like, as much as he lives and breathes the X-Men, and that would be full circle for him, if he's not happy about the hierarchy at Disney, I think he can be had. And I'm just saying, like, I'm not putting James Gunn out of a job for sure. I'm simply saying James Gunn's boss is about to change. And as we've said many times, it may not even be about the merits of James Gunn. It may just simply be the new owner of Warner Brothers wants to do things their way. They want to, right? It's the Bill Parcells, right? They want to shop for the groceries. And if that's the case, the first person they're going to call if they think there's any opportunity, because we know WB tried this before with a previous regime. They called Kevin when they were in complete disarray. They called Kevin, and Marvel was humming, right? That's an easy one for him. But what if it's not so easy the next time?
Yeah.
I don't know. circle this little musical chairs thing that's going to be going on here at Disney.
Very interesting stuff. We got a few seconds here. Let's talk about the 10 Rings animated show.
My God. Oh, man. I saw this. I was like, oh, no.
I'm like, yo, like, why, yo? Why? Yeah, it doesn't make like why, yo? Like the 10 rings? Nobody's talking about the 10 rings, yo. The only reason we talk about the 10 rings is like, why did it matter in the first place? Right? What's that beacon? That's it. But outside of that, we don't care, yo.
So the rumor is they want to build a 10 Rings animated show in the spirit and mindset of Eyes of Wakanda, meaning the 10 Rings through time, right? That's effectively what Eyes of Wakanda was. It was a historical look back talking about Wakanda's influence on different points in history. And point number one, y'all buried Eyes of Wakanda. You did everything you could to pretend like that thing didn't exist. So you want to do a follow-up in the spirit of that? Like, that makes no sense. Second of all, somebody's got to be trolling Simu Liu here, right? Because if his follow-up appearances are restricted to Marvel Zombies and a 10 Rings animated show, as much as I hated the interviews that he was given for the Copenhagen test, I can't blame that man if he feels a certain sort of way if that's what happens to him. At least at Marvel, that's not right, man. He deserved better than that.
Yes.
At that role, he deserved better than that. Even if he wasn't a great Shang-Chi in the first time out, man, you don't get to get relegated to Marvel Zombies and a 10 Rings, call it 4-episode animated series. Yeah, you can ask some questions about that.
By them doing this, you already know how they feel about Simu Liu, yo.
Exactly. That's exactly what it says to me. That's a please leave offer. That's the kind of thing where if your favorite sports team wants to get rid of a player but doesn't want to seem like they got rid of the player, you lowball them big time on the offer, right? So then they're insulted and they leave. That's what this feels like.
You may go now.
Oh, snap. I'll try to find that clip. Anyway, let us know in the comment section below what you guys think of all the things that we talked about here on the Nerd Gen Report in our Marvel Roundup episode. X-Men Doomsday storyline, brand new day, 10 villain situation, Spider-Man, and the MCU crossover. Spider-Man Noir, Nicolas Cage doing his thing. The new CEO and what that may bring for Disney and Kevin Feige and the roles that are currently in place now and how that might change in the near future. The next 6 months are going to be interesting. Again, remember to hit that like and subscribe, share with your friends, and comment in the comment section below. And remember, if you haven't heard it anywhere else, you heard it here first on the Nerd Gen Report.